begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the lands where we're living, acknowledging elders, both those past and those present. We'll be talking today about the valuable role we have as participants in the lives of children and young people and our responsibility to maintain connection for them with the oldest living culture in the world, over 60,000 years of connection, their culture and their belonging. My respects extended to other Aboriginal people listening today, respect for your people, your stories and your strengths. Welcome to the recorded information session on the Community Services Care Plan template. This presentation is designed for non-government agencies, community partners, legal service providers, carers, parents and family members of children. My name's Michelle Rogers. I'm a Wiradjuri woman of Davey descent, working as a casework specialist in northern New South Wales. This presentation aims to inform you about the redesigned care plan template that Community Services will be using in the Children's Court, which now includes our cultural planning commitment. We want to acknowledge the important role that parents and family, carers, non-government partners and independent legal representatives have in the development of care planning for children, which is why we've developed this information session to share with you information on the changes you'll observe in the way the department develops care plans for children. In this presentation, we'll talk about the why and the how of the Care and Cultural Plan project, what's new as a result of the project. We'll be discussing Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander cultural planning as well as multicultural planning. We'll then demonstrate the redesigned care plan in a more interactive way so that you can become familiar with the document. Then we'll talk about what you can expect to happen next in relation to care planning in day-to-day practice. In the first section, we'll be talking about the care plan project, looking at the why we needed a new care plan template and describing how the new template was developed. In developing the redesigned care and cultural plan, there's been extensive consultation with and also feedback received from parents and carers, from the President of the Children's Court, from frontline staff including managers and caseworkers both within VACS and from the non-government community partners, from children and young people, from VACS advisory groups including Aboriginal, Multicultural and Generalist district staff, peak bodies and NGOs including ABSEC and AQUA, as well as legal stakeholders like the Aboriginal Legal Service. The feedback we received has been incorporated into the new care plan template. Section 78 of our Act discusses the permanency pathways for children needing to live out of home. These were amended in the Act from October 2014. It legislates how we outline a long-term plan for children or a young person and can set a time frame for determining permanency arrangements for a child. The care plan still makes provision for allocation of parental responsibility, the type of placement for a child, contact arrangements, designated agencies with case management, services for the child, views and arrangements, agreements with the parents, but it can also include other key concerns or considerations for the child as regulated or agreed to in the State Children's Court. The Children's Court cannot make final orders unless it's considered a care plan. As you may be already aware, open adoption is generally not considered appropriate for children from an Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander background because of the sad history and impact of our department's former policies. Therefore, there are separate permanency pathways for children from different cultural backgrounds. It's our departmental responsibility to demonstrate to the court how we've considered each of the placement options for a child and why an option was not considered appropriate to meet the needs of that child. In discussion with the President of the Children's Court, he shared that the rationale our department provides as to why a pathway wasn't chosen for a child will be as important to the court as the pathway that we do nominate. This feedback highlights the importance of our department to ensure that we explore each permanency pathway in detail and that we record our decision making well when presenting a plan to the court. So looking at what's new now, we'll talk about the new template itself as well as our new commitments to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander consultation and participation as a result of the redesigned care plan project. So it's now mandatory for the department to complete the new cultural plans for children and young people who are identified as Aboriginal and or Torres Strait Islander or from multicultural backgrounds. To date, some courts and some legal representatives have been quite strong in requesting cultural care plans before the court with children, while other courts and legal reps have been less rigorous around it. Therefore, our focus on the cultural needs of children has been somewhat unpredictable and varying in practice before the courts and for family and community members. This care plan template will offer consistency across the state. It embeds cultural planning, permanency pathways, as well as the Aboriginal placement principles. It will significantly reduce the risk of cultural needs of children getting lost in the clutter of clashing priorities that caseworkers and their managers have to balance when they're considering the long-term needs of a child. If a child's both of Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander, as well as from a multicultural background, both sections of the plan will need to be completed to meet the individual needs of that child. We'll cover that more in the demonstration a little bit later on in the presentation. The new Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Cultural Plan includes new requirements when developing the plan. It's been agreed with the court and our peak community partners that there'll be a minimum of 4 consultations with a child or young person's Aboriginal family and community. These are to demonstrate that community services staff have engaged with the family and community in planning to meet the cultural needs of the child within the plan. Consultation and engagement must occur with the child or young person's Aboriginal family and community to ensure that the cultural needs of the child or young persons are planned to be met. A minimum of 4 activities that engage cultural participation need to be also included in the plan when developing Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander cultural plans as well. Pursuing these activities for the child will demonstrate the department's ongoing commitment to maintaining cultural integrity for the child throughout their time in care. Moving on now to talk about the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander cultural planning component of the new template. We want to acknowledge the work of our community partner ABSEC, who have invested strongly in this section of our presentation. In this section, we'll discuss the principles in the legislation, consultation with families and communities, resources staff have been encouraged to use to assist in consultation, cultural planning for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander children, as well as the department's casework practice standards, and that's where we'll share a case example which incorporates good use of the care plan to meet the individual needs of a child. Sections 11 to 14 of the Child and Young Persons Care and Protection Act underpin and are the foundation of child protection work with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander families and communities. These sections of our Act are imperative to the values, the principles and our commitment to the children that we're working for. Through this presentation, we'll be offering a timely reminder of our responsibilities under this Act. Section 11 talks about self-determination. It's important that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people actively participate in decision-making for their lives and the lives of their children. Wherever possible, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people should be the primary decision makers in matters that relate to their children. Inclusion in developing strategies to address child protection issues that are at both the family and community level is our legal obligation. So further to Section 11, Section 12 continues and reinforces the importance of self-determination. It underscores the significance of Aboriginal people having the right to participate in all decision-making that affects them, Aboriginal participation in decision-making to empower and enhance the protection of Aboriginal children and young people, and that Aboriginal people must participate in the cultural planning process, as well as decisions about placements and the individual cultural needs of the child or young person. Section 13 of our Act, the placement principles. This is a legal hierarchy of placement for all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander children. If community services do this well, it'll result in minimal cultural displacement and maintain the integrity of cultural fabric in the best way possible for a child needing to reside out of home. The hierarchy in its order of preference is that a child be placed with a member of their extended family or kinship group, Secondly, a member of the Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander community to which the child or young person belongs. Next, a member of some other Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander family residing in the vicinity of the child or young person's usual place of residence. And finally, another suitable person is approved by the Secretary after consultation with the child's family and Aboriginal organisations appropriate for the child. Section 14 of the Act commits to record keeping. The care plan is a key decision-making tool that the Children's Court uses for all children in out-of-home care as a permanent record of the decision made for the welfare and long-term being of all children. All children, parents and other significant people have access to their departmental records relating to placement. Developing the care plan is an important investment and it has the opportunity to set up a child well throughout their time living out of the family home. The redesigned template now has cultural planning embedded in it to better meet the long-term needs of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander children by maintaining connection to both country and cultural practices. Engaging the child's family, kinship and community in the development of the child's care and cultural plan is essential for good cultural planning for the child. Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander families are the experts in their own culture. Therefore, for a cultural plan to be meaningful for a child, community services staff are obliged to incorporate this expert advice from the families and community. Caseworkers and their managers may be seeking your assistance to make meaningful connections with extended family members for children that we're working for to ensure that they're able to access this expert advice that they'll need to make sure that the plan is meaningful for the child. Your support, your guidance and advice will be absolutely critical to enhance the quality of the care plans that the staff are developing. Some of the key resources available to caseworkers to undertake consultation with Aboriginal families and communities are highlighted here. The Aboriginal Consultation Guide provides information about the consultation process and consultation support. It's available on the VACS intranet and you're able to access it. The web page also has fact sheets, templates and forms to help support workers in developing their cultural competence. The Working with Aboriginal People and Communities practice resource is available on the Aboriginal Policy Unit webpage. This document was produced by Community Services in February 2009. It's a recognised resource across many of our community partners. It's easy to read, has simple practical ideas to support us in our ways of working with Aboriginal people and community. ABSEC's Aboriginal Consultation Guide is available on ABSEC's website. An updated version is due to be released very soon. ABSEC also have on their website many other interesting resources that we also encourage you to explore. Staff at Community Services have also been encouraged to take a look at the Secretariat of National Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Childcare, or SNAIC, website to look for other resources that might be available there to support them in their work. As mentioned briefly earlier, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people know their story and their history, and as such are the best experts in their own lives. When community services staff are first engaging with a family, gathering information needs to be relevant to the purpose and the reasons for our involvement. Community services staff need to do so with respectful curiosity. So when they're out conducting safety or risk assessments, they might include information and gather information around the identity of the family, support networks and kinship arrangements to develop a better picture of the family and who might be able to assist and support the family in addressing safety and risk concerns for children. So if the safety or risk concerns are not able to be addressed and the child is in need of care and needs to leave the home, this information then can become the foundation of the cultural plan for a child, and the links to family and kinship supports would be identified and maintained to try to keep them available for the child throughout their experience of time out of home. So information gathered for a child's cultural plan could in turn become the platform for the development of a child's out-of-home care life story work. So we can see the great value, the long-term for the child as we gather meaningful information from the commencement of our relationship with the family. As previously mentioned, documentation needs to be clear and meaningful, and restoration will always remain our primary focus when we're working with families. In instances where children are in need of care, the Aboriginal placement principles are to be met, and it's our department's responsibility to do that. So also the principles seek to empower Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, and this can be done through active and ongoing consultation. Consultation is not a stagnant process, instead it's a fluid learning process for both us as the professionals as well as for the growing experience of the child. Maintaining an Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander in the child in their culture reinforces cultural integrity, their sense of belonging and connection with family, community and country. It's an important element for their lifelong well-being of the child. An example of good work done with a family in a CSC recently reflects the incorporation of the practice standards well when developing a care plan. A worker was working with a small child who'd been taken from the care of his parents and placed with a relative after assessment. The child's Aboriginal, his family's from northern New South Wales on Bundjalung country, while his mother and her community of belonging was Gamilaroi from western New South Wales. The worker had concern that if she placed the child with the father's family, it would result in disconnection for the child with his mother's people and country, and vice versa if she placed the child with the mother's family. The worker invested in the care plan by incorporating an undertaking that community services would provide a cross-family group conference to support the placement for the child and how to maintain connections for the child with the entire family that might be best for him while he's in care. So that example demonstrates the effective use of the care plan in meeting Practice Standard 6, culturally responsive practice with Aboriginal communities. The worker was supported by her manager to reflect on the concerns that she had for the child and his family and include the family in discussion and decision making through self-determination. She was mindful of the cultural sensitivities in working across communities with families, and she took the time to understand the needs of the child in the context of his entire kinship relationships. Furthermore, the worker then used the care plan to demonstrate our ongoing commitment to the child in maintaining his cultural integrity and his connections while he's in care. So moving forward in the presentation now, let's explore multicultural care planning. None of the points on the slide would surprise us in our everyday, day-to-day work as professionals working with children and their families. Every child has a right to have connection with their culture of birth. Accurate and clear documentation supports children to maintain connection with their identity, and that maintaining a child in their culture reinforces a positive and clear sense of identity, place and community. The Multicultural Support Workers Project has cultural support workers that can provide support and advocacy for families from multicultural backgrounds and those that have newly arrived in Australia. Community services caseworkers are able to access and support these in planning home visits, case planning, cultural consultations, and as well as in the development of their cultural care plans for children. Further advice, resources and tools to assist out-of-home care providers to support refugee and migrant children, young people and their families can be found on the FACTS website at the path outlined below. Feel free to browse the FACTS website for these resources and other resources to support you in your work with families and children. We'd like to share with you an experience of a worker who was recently working with a refugee family to demonstrate the good use of the practice standards. A child came to Australia as an unaccompanied minor along with her older brothers. They lived in the care of a family who they developed a relationship with during migration. A few years later, the carers chose to relocate to another state. The child, who was now a teenager, wanted to remain in the local area where she'd established herself well in school and part-time work. Her older brothers actually applied to be authorised for her ongoing care. They were now young adults themselves. The worker struggled at first with the concept of a teenage girl being placed in the long-term care of her young adult brothers. After many conversations with the child and her brothers, the worker began to realise that the commitment that the brothers had to her was not only that of a sibling relationship, but it was also founded in their cultural obligation to her. The worker developed further knowledge and understanding of the cultural background of the family and incorporated that knowledge into her experience working alongside of the family. The worker was able to expand her working knowledge of local services and supports available for the family, as both the brothers and the young persons identified what their needs would be. She incorporated these into planning for the young person's ongoing care. A respectful and meaningful relationship was actually developed and formed between the worker and the family group. So we're now going to have a closer overview of the template itself before we move into the demonstration of the template. As you know, the FACS casework worker is responsible for completing the care plan. However, you will be a part of gathering information from its development. So let's look at the different sections of the care plan that will be filled in. There's a home page. This is a navigation page, and it's a way for the person completing the document to move through the document. It actually doesn't print up. Next is the family detail sections. This section includes key information about the child's identity, their family and other relationships, as well as this is where we can generate the cultural plans from. When we generate the cultural plan, an Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander cultural plan includes all relevant information on how the child or young person will maintain their cultural identity and improve their cultural development. So as you know, the FACS caseworker is responsible for completing the care plan. However, you'll be a part of gathering information for its development. So let's have a look at the different sections within the plan. The home page is a way for a person developing the plan to navigate through the sections. It's not part of the printed part of the document. Family details section. This includes the key information on the child's identity, their family details and other relationships, and this is where we can generate the cultural plans from. If generating an Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander cultural plan, this includes all relevant information on how the child or young person will maintain their cultural identity and improve their cultural development, as well as this is where we record the minimum of 4 consultations with the child or young person's Aboriginal family and community, and a minimum of 4 activities that encourage cultural participation. Here it also details culturally appropriate services that will be provided to the child throughout their time in care. The Multicultural plan includes all relevant information on how the child's cultural identity will be maintained and cultural development improved. It includes culturally appropriate services that will be provided as determined through consultations with culturally appropriate family members and community representatives, as well as the roles and responsibilities of those participating in developing the cultural plan. In the family history section, this is the key information about the child and their family relevant to the care proceedings. It also includes the history, development and the experience of the child, as well as their relationship with the parents and their family. The legal status and placement information section has key information about the child's legal status, the placement proposed or sought for the child, and how it relates to permanency planning. It details any allocation of parental responsibility between the minister and the parents, any proposed interim arrangements and timetable for achieving a permanency placement. It also is where we might make a note of any amended versions or previously filed care plans. The permanency planning section aligns and is structured according to the permanency pathways introduced into our legislation in October 2014. The redesigned care plan template doesn't allow for the adoption pathway to be generated for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander children. The views section, so this is where the FACS caseworker records the view of the child, the parents, family and kinship, as well as any other significant professional relationships, such as carers or the NGO holding case management. It's also where the views of any person who's expressed disagreement with the plan can be recorded, and it documents the FACS approval of the care plan. The summary page acts as a cover page for the entire care plan. It was a specific requirement of the President of the Children's Court to have a one-page summary page at the beginning of the care plan template. So we're going to move into and show you a partly completed care plan, paying close attention to the areas that you might find of interest, so including information about the NGOs currently holding case management, children and young people, their parents, carers and legal officers. So here you'll see a care plan for Jade Smith. In the family details section, the yellow section, you'll note that both Jade is both Aboriginal and Vietnamese, and that both the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander cultural plan as well as the multicultural plan has been generated in the top navigation toolbar because Jade's identity has been confirmed there. You'll find Jade's some basic information there about Jade, so her mother's details, her father's details. 2 siblings are included in this plan, as well as her grandmother's details, details about her carer, as well as details about the non-government agency who holds case management responsibility for Jade. So the summary page view is actually limited to only 2 significant people in order to satisfy the Children's Court requirement that the summary page remain 1 page long. So in this particular sample, we've nominated Jade's grandmother, Anna, and her carer as the 2 significant people. Obviously, the care plan itself includes all significant people for Jade in it. However, on the summary page, only 2 of those significant relationships will carry across. We'll show you that in more detail a bit later on. At the end of this section, you'll see the attachment section. This is where we've entered the titles of 2 attachments that relate to the section. One is a copy of Jade's birth certificate, and the other is a copy of her genogram. At the end of each section of the care plan, there's an option to add more attachments. So please note that the FACS caseworker completing the template will still need to attach hard copies of the documents along with the printed care and cultural plan that's being presented before the court. So for the purposes of demonstrating particular pathways in later sections, for now we're going to go back up to Jade's cultural identity and unselect Aboriginal as her identity. Let's go and have a look now at the family details section. And just briefly cover some of the section here. So this section here, you'll see that this section is where the FACS caseworker provides information about Jade and her family that might relate to things like the impact of the child protection concerns for Jade, Jade's parents' experiences as a child, Jade's relationship with her parents, her siblings, family, other significant people. So that's where that information's held. In the legal status and placement information, which is the number 3 on the icon toolbar, here you'll see that we've already entered details relating that, confirming that it's an initiating care plan, that the care plan dates has been completed, and the proposed final orders have been completed as well for parental responsibility to the Minister and a contact order. These have auto-populated across to the summary page and other parts of the care plan, which we'll show you now actually. We'll go over to the summary page, which is the S icon at the top of the toolbar, and you'll see how this information is carried across and auto-populated in here. So the family details is completed, some information about the care status, the care plan, and the proposed final orders. You'll note in the other significant persons involved section that only 2 people are mentioned there. As I mentioned earlier, that particular field will only host 2 people being nominated, but in the care plan itself, you'll see all of Jade's sibling relationships, family relationships noted. So just wanted to highlight that again for you. If we go now and take a look at the permanency planning section, we'll click on the number 5 icon at the top, and you can see Jade's full name, date of birth and her age is all auto-populated, as well as the final orders that we're seeking. They've all generated straight across to this section. We're going to step you through the steps of each pathway, starting with restoration. If we say that restoration is a possibility for Jade, it'll show a series of questions that relate to restoration. Next, it'll ask us if an out-of-home care case plan's already been completed for Jade. If we say yes to that, it'll actually direct us to attach a copy of the out-of-home care case plan, which we can do by scrolling to the attachment section at the bottom and adding that we're going to attach a copy of her out-of-home care case plan. If we go back up and say no to restoration, if we say no to a case plan, it'll ask us, it'll actually generate a case plan there, and it'll ask us to complete the care plan review template below. So next is the contact plan, and then we're going to, in the contact plan, maybe select the mother. And in reasons for contact, we're going to type in to maintain a relationship between Jade and her mother. Frequency, we're going to note it as monthly contact. So we can add as many sections as we need to both the case plan and the contact plan sections. And we can add any additional information or add the name of any attachments as well at the bottom of that page that might relate to restoration planning. So if we scroll back up to the top of the page now to the restoration options and select no, it'll ask us then to detail the reasons that restoration is not being considered. So in our discussions with the Children's Court, it's been made quite clear that they'll be looking very closely at the rationale that we provide for not considering each of the pathways. So the new template, the FACS caseworkers will be noting rationales for not considering these pathways. Now we'll select yes, that guardianship will provide a safe, nurturing, stable and secure environment for Jade. This brings up specific questions relating to guardianship, and it also asks who will be recommending as a guardian for Jade. If we scroll down to the next question, it's who has been assessed but not recommended as a guardian, we can add additional lines to ensure that everyone who has been assessed as a guardianship has been recorded for Jade. Next, the case plan. This time we're going to select yes, that we do have a case plan for Jade, and then again we see the contact plan, any additional information and attachment sections are populated, and that's where we complete that information. So let's scroll back to the top of the page and now select no to guardianship. We'll then be required to add details of people who have been assessed but not recommended as a guardian for Jade. So Jade's not Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander at this point in time in the demonstration. The next permanency pathway that opens up is adoption. If we select yes to adoption, It brings up specific questions relating to adoption, as well as parental responsibility orders that are being sought to facilitate adoption. So as with every section, the case plan comes next, and we'll say yes, that we do have an out-of-home care completed case plan. And you'll see that the contact plan, additional information, and attachment sections follow thereafter. If we go back up and say no now to adoption, again it asks us to provide a rationale as to why adoption hasn't been considered, and it asks us to identify who's expressed an interest in adopting Jade. So the last pathway is the parental responsibility orders with specific questions relating to parental responsibility, including who's being allocated responsibility and who's been assessed and not recommended. This again is followed by the case plan, which we'll say yes to. The additional information and attachment sections as well. If we go back now to the family details section and add cultural identities for Jade of both Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander, and then we can return back to the permanency planning section. Yeah, we'll now see that parental responsibility orders directly follows guardianship instead of adoption. The template doesn't allow for the adoption pathway for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander children, but if FACS is seeking adoption, we can detail this in the additional information section in the PR orders. Again, if we say yes to having a out-of-home care case plan, it'll open up that section and we can type in information in the additional information section there. So we might go and have a look now at number 5 icon at the top, the views section on the template. So we haven't gathered Jade's views in this case because of her age, but we have detailed why. As a minimum within the template, the FACS caseworker will need to gather the views of the child, the parents, or provide a rationale for not gathering the views. So as in the case of Jade's father, where we've had to enter that he's deceased as a rationale for not gathering his views. So here you'll also see we've entered the views and how these were gathered. For Jade's siblings, we've got Adam's views as he's the older of the siblings, but not John's. We have the views of her grandmother, her carer, and the NGO case manager. So if we scroll down now to the attachment sections, you'll see a list of all of the attachments we've entered in each section throughout the care plan, and that's the list of attachments you'd expect to see at the back of the document. If we scroll down a little further, you'll see the headings FACS caseworker and FACS manager. Here's where the FACS manager casework will be signing off the care plan, and the date entered here acts as the date of care plan approval by FACS on the front summary page. Let's go now and have a look at the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander cultural plan. So if we click on the purple C icon at the top of the navigation toolbar and that'll select the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander cultural plan. So as you can see, the child's family and family's details have automatically populated throughout the cultural plan. Jade's Aboriginal, we can see fields relating specifically to her Aboriginal cultural identity, including her country, her nation, community of belonging, kinship group, language group, totem details. As Jade's also Torres Strait Islander, we can see the cultural identity fields for the Torres Strait here, asking for detail around her island, her clan, and her communities of belonging. So if any sibling, community member, carer, or other significant relationship has contributed towards the cultural plan development, the FACS caseworker can add their names and contribution here as well. So let's scroll down and have a look at the placement section. This is where the FACS caseworker needs to select if Jade's being placed with family in foster care or another type of placement, which we detail if we select other. If we select from the drop-down menu, we can see the options. We have to confirm that the Aboriginal Child Placement Principles have been applied. That was Section 13 of our Act. The next key section of the cultural plan is the consultation section, where FACS will have to detail the minimum of 4 culturally appropriate consultations with family, kin and community. If we scroll down, we can also, there's other areas where the FACS caseworker can fill out the consultations that they've conducted with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander community-controlled organisations, as well as other consultations that have occurred to develop the cultural plan. The next section is where the FACS caseworker will detail who will be involved in meeting Jade's cultural needs and the cultural support that they'll be providing. This includes events, activities, programs that Jade will participate in to ensure that Jade has opportunities to experience her culture and her community. It also helps establish connections with Aboriginal family and community. FACS will need to record a minimum of 4 supports in this section before submitting the document before the Children's Court. If we select the information icon for participation in this section, the FACS caseworker will have a list to guide them around what they could include as attendance. So, for example, attendance at family gatherings, cultural camps, community events, as well as connections with books, music, elders. In many cases, the child or young person, the parents, carers and the NGO holding case management will actually be involved in developing this part of the cultural care plan. So let's now go and have a look at the Multicultural Care Plan, so the orange M icon in the navigation toolbar. So very similar to the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander cultural plan, so we'll just look at the main differences. For Jade, we have the additional question asking for the approximate amount of time in Australia if she wasn't born here, as well as the immigration status and any entitlements to other citizenships that we'd need to consider. As we scroll down, we can see the sections for all relationships are the same, but we do have an additional section called Culturally Specific Organisations. If we open this section, we can see the information relating to the name, details of the service, and how the service will contribute towards Jade's cultural development, identity, and her well-being. The legal status and placement sections are very similar, minus the Aboriginal child placement principles and those specific questions. And we'll see that the participation in cultural and consultation sections that need to be populated as similar to the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander cultural plan. However, there are no minimum requirements in regards to consultation and participation in cultural activities as there are with the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander cultural plans. So that is a demonstration of the care plan template and what you can expect to see before the Children's Courts. I just want to take us back to the presentation now, and we'll have a look at what's next and just consider what is next and what to do if you have some more questions or need some support. So our FACS caseworkers will be using the care plan, including the cultural plans, and they'll be mandatory from the 9th of January 2017. You may be asked to be involved in the development of a care plan specific to a child that you're working with, or as a member of the family or community to which the child belongs. Carers may be asked to provide information for the plan to record the efforts that you're making to implement the goal of keeping the child connected with their cultural identity during the time that the child's placed in your care. Agencies may be asked to provide information about their case planning for ongoing cultural care of the child, or may be asked to consult with the department on a particular child to support the planning process. Legal representatives and advisors will want to remain aware of the commitment the Department has made to a minimum of 4 consultations and 4 commitments to participatory activities within the plan to ensure that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander children are encouraged to maintain their cultural identity while they're living out of home. As other people who are significant in the lives of children that we're working with, your thoughts, your expertise, cultural knowledge is all very important to ensuring that the care plan is meaningful and purposeful in the life of the child. We look forward to working closely alongside you to improve and enhance the lives and wellbeing of the children and young people who are living out of home. Thank you for your time. For further information on the new care plan, you can go to the care plan webpage where we have frequently asked questions and responses, as well as some support tools available. There's also a PDF copy available of the redesigned template. Should you have any further questions or queries, you're also invited to email our Safe Home for Life reform team on the email address provided. We hope that you found this information session helpful and the presentation meaningful for your work with children and their families.